Greetings everybody, my name is Captain Comedy. I'm captain of the Comedy Pirates here with today's video. Now for today's video is going to be about Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, and we're going to be going over a Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck called Yu-Gi-Oh! Worms. Now, Yu-Gi-Oh! Worms came out like a very long time ago. I don't think there's been much support for it recently or anything like that. I decided to build Worms because back then when I was in middle school I used to run Worms. Now I didn't have all the cards, but I think it was pretty cool that I had like the closest thing to have an actual complete Yu-Gi-Oh deck instead of random cards I pull from trades that nobody wants no more. So I'm going to be going over my Yu-Gi-Oh Worm deck in January of 2025. Hopefully this video helps in some way when it comes to saying if we're going to be playing this in the future, considering building it and much more. But yeah, here's today's video. So first, we're going to have one copy of the Wicked Worm Beast. Now, this is not a reptile creature, this is not a worm creature, it's just something that I think fits within the theme. Once per turn, during your end phase, return this card to your hand. Now, I think this is just a cool card to have in general, because it fits the theme of worms. So, worms are flip effect creatures that if you flip face up, it has an ability. And basically, you're supposed to summon from the weakest to the highest. So for example, you will summon like low level 4 creatures, and then you will summon the prince, then you can summon the victory, then you can summon the king and the queen. So basically think of it like ranks in an anthill. Then you're gonna go from soldier all the way up to king. So basically you're just trying to summon strong creatures and hopefully fusion summon Worm 0. We're gonna need one copy of Worm Baris, I believe that's how you pronounce that. Now, when this card is normal summon, target one defense position monster, change that target to face up attack position, which this creature will help us summon an ability with a defense position creature that we have. I recommend having one copy of Ash, one copy of Ghost. Now, we need two copies of Worm Kataros, I believe that's how you pronounce that. If you flip summon this card, you get to add one level 4 or lower reptile monster from your deck to your hand. So let's say this card is face down defense position, you summon this card, you flip summon this to activate its ability, and then you summon a card like Worm X and Worm Y. You need one copy of Worm Gloos. Each time a face down defense position monster is flipped face up, you place one worm counter on this card, and this card gains 300 attack for each counter on it. So this is good just to have like as a single strong creature to have, because as you can see, most worms don't really have like the best attack or defense. So this is mainly going to be a good card just to have for attacking. I recommend having one copy of Worm Milidif, I believe that's how you pronounce that. You flip summon this card, you get to equip this card to your opponent's creature as an equipped card, and then this card inflicts 400 damage to the controller of the equipped monster during each standby phase. So let's say you're gonna have a creature, like for example this one, that's all you have, and your opponent will have a stronger creature, knowing that you cannot destroy it, have a card effect, or anything to deal with your opponent's card. This card will be great because it will possibly force your opponent to sacrifice or get rid of that creature, because they're gonna constantly take damage every turn, just because they have their creature on the field. Now, I recommend having one copy of Worm Rakuya, I believe that's how you pronounce that. This card can only declare an attack, the turn is flipped face up, and if this card attacks, it is changed to defense position face down at the end of the battle phase. So this is good for strong attack and pretty solid defense. Or you can just summon in attack mode and you're not able to attack, but it's there to like protect you. Now we're gonna need 3 copies of Worm X. Now Worm X and Worm Y are like the main cards that you're gonna be needing. So I recommend having 3 copies of each. Now, when this card is normal summon, you get to send one reptile worm creature to the deck to your graveyard. And if you control a Worm Y, this card cannot be destroyed by battle. Now, what you're gonna do is, after we discard its ability, Worm Y, if the only monster you control is Worm X, you can just special summon this card from your graveyard and face down defense position. And if you do, Remove it from play when it's removed from the field, so it means that it is banished. When this card is flipped face up, select one face up monster your opponent controls, return it to their hand. So a good combo I recommend is having you normal summon Worm X, which makes you summon Worm Y to go to the graveyard. And because it's in the graveyard, I get a special summon face down, defense position. Now when this card is normal summon, you can do this on your next turn. You gotta change this card to face up attack mode. Or basically you have one creature on the field for decent attack of 1800, and you have this one on the field for decent defense of 1800 as well. So pretty much it's a good combo. You summon this card to summon this, you know? I recommend having one copy of Worm Prince, because when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you get to add one card of your hand that has a worm monster from your deck to your hand. Did I read that correctly? If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can add to your hand one reptile worm. You get worm creature from your deck to your graveyard. Now, destroy this card during end phase if you do not control a reptile worm creature other than this card in the field. So normally this is not a good ability because it gets destroyed, but honestly our entire deck is nothing but worm creatures, so we should be fine. I highly recommend having one copy of Worm Victory. Now this flip effect is destroy all monsters on the field except reptile worm creatures, and this card gains attack equal to the cards destroyed. So if your opponent has all 5 monster zones destroyed, that means you gain 500, 1000, 1500, 2000, 2500, and that's what it will be for like the highest it will go to by attack, because it goes by 500. And if I have this card on the field, it will destroy it as well, which makes it 3000. Now this card has no purpose and any use to us that I can think of at the moment, but I just like the fact that it fits in with the theme, so I'm gonna add this just cause. Hold up. Yeah. So in case like this doesn't work, well, it's just there to have anyway. I recommend having one copy of Lava Golem. Lava Golem, you get to special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's side of the field by sacrificing 2 creatures they control. And every standby phase, they take 1000 points of damage. Great card, never goes wrong. Now you could add this card or Nibiru. I like Lava Golem better in my opinion. I recommend having one copy of Evil Dragon Ananta. I believe that's how you pronounce that. You must special summon this card by banishing all reptile monsters you control and that are in your graveyard. Now, this card gains 600 attack and defense from creatures that are banished for its special summon. And once per turn, you target one card in your field, destroy it. Now that I think about it, let me look up a card real quick. So I'm gonna actually let's add 2 copies. I cannot afford 2 copies, so I'll make one. No, I can afford it, so I'll make one. Okay, so I recommend having 2 copies of these because, as you can see, by banishing everything I control, I gain 600 attack and defense at once per turn. I can choose one card in the field, destroy it. That's a very good ability. So that's why I'm gonna have one copy of Pot of Avarice and Pot of whatever you pronounce that. Then I recommend having 2 copies of Worm King. Now, this card can be tribute summoning attack mode by tributing only one reptile worm creature. Now, you can tribute one worm creature that I control to destroy one card my opponent controls. So honestly, I think this is pretty good. Then one copy of Worm Queen. Now, same thing. You can tribute this card by only tributing summoning one reptile worm creature that you control. And once per turn, you get to tribute one reptile worm monster to special summon one reptile worm creature from your deck with a level less than or equal to the tributed monster. But I think it's pretty cool. So let's say you have an extra copy of Worm, but you don't need this Worm copy. You can summon a different one, like this one or this one, you know? I highly recommend one copy of Raigeki to destroy all monsters your opponent controls, because as you can see, our worms don't really attack or do anything to your opponent's field except summoning or using an ability for worms. So one copy of Raigeki should destroy your opponent's monsters. I highly recommend one copy of Swords of Revealing Light due to the fact that it can help us summon and get more cards that we needed, so our worm creatures do not get destroyed. One copy of Harpy's Feather Duster to destroy all spells and trap cards that your opponent controls. Now I recommend one Pot of Avarice because our cards are going to be going to the graveyard more likely, So target 5 monsters in your graveyard, shuffle 5, and then draw 2. So I think it's pretty good to recycle from the graveyard. 1 copy of Viper's Rebirth. For if all monsters in your graveyard are reptile monsters, target 1 non-tuner in your graveyard, special summon it but destroy it during your end phase. So I recommend 1 copy because technically this is like Monster Reborn but for reptiles. So let's say this is not yet summoned or in the graveyard and all I have are reptile creatures. I get to use this card to summon Worm King or possibly this one or any creature you control and use it to your advantage. Use it to sacrifice, XC summon, fusion summon, whatever. I recommend 2 copies of Future Fusion for, as you can see, we're doing fusion. So during your first standby phase, after this card is activated, you show the fusion monster on your extra deck and send the materials listed from your main deck to the graveyard. So basically you're telling your opponent, hey, this is the card I'm going to summon. Here are the fusion materials. You're going to send them to the graveyard. And during your second standby phase, after this card's activation, fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck with the same name as the monster you showed and target it with this card. Now when this card leaves the field, destroy that target, and when a target is destroyed, destroy this card. So basically during your second standby phase after this card activation, fusion summon the creature from extra deck as shown and target with this card as like an equip spell. So honestly, I think this is pretty good because instead of having polymerization, this lets you plan it out, which as you can see from the title, Future Fusion, it does exactly that. So this is a better version of polymerization. You could use polymerization, but I recommend having this card instead. Now, I recommend 2 copies of Worm Call. For if your opponent controls a monster and I control no monsters, I get to special summon 1 reptile worm monster from your hand in face down defense position. So let's say we get board wipe with our creatures and they have their field with something and I don't draw any worm creatures. I can just have Worm Call do it for me and summon. 1 copy of however you pronounce this. Now, because we're going to be banishing when it comes to this card helps us recycle 3 banished creatures, shuffle into the deck, then draw 1 card. I think it's pretty good to recycle. So we're going to have 1 copy of this one, 1 copy of that one. Now 1 copy of Threatening Roar, so your opponent cannot declare an attack, so we're possibly saving ourselves from an attack. I recommend having 1 copy of Snake Whistle. Now activate when only reptile creature you control is destroyed by battle. You get to special summon 1 level 4 or lower reptile monster from your deck. So let's say this card gets destroyed. This helps you summon Worm X or Worm Y, so you can possibly XC summon or fusion summon, you know. I recommend 2 copies of Offering to the Snake Deity. Now target 1 face-up reptile monster you control and 2 cards in your opponent controls, destroy all 3. So basically you're going to sacrifice like a low level worm creature to destroy 2 creatures or 2 cards, I think. Yeah, 2 cards your opponent controls. 2 copies of Alien Brain. If a reptile creature you control is destroyed by battle with an opponent's attacking monster and is sent to the graveyard, I take control of that monster, and if you do, it becomes a reptile. So this is great because this forces your opponent not to attack us, because once they do, you can technically control that creature, and depending on that creature that destroyed one of our worms, it could be a great advantage to you. 2 copies of W Nebula Meteorite. Now change all face-down monsters to the field to face-down defense position. During the end phase of this turn, change all face-up light reptile type monsters you control to face-down defense position, then draw 1 card for each. After that, I get to special summon 1 level 7 or higher light reptile monster from your deck. So this gives us a great advantage because it makes all creatures to face-down defense mode. And then, during the end phase, I get to change all face-up light monsters you control to face down and draw 1 for each. And then after that, I get to summon 1 level 7 high reptile monster, which I think is a great advantage. 1 copy of Infinite Impertinence. Great card to negate your opponents from doing anything. 1 copy of Gravedigger's Trap Hole. So basically, whenever your opponent's effect is activated from your hand or graveyard, or when your opponent is banished, a monster is activating, you negate it. and then your opponent will take 2,000 points of damage. Now you have Solemn Judgment. Pay half your life points to negate a summon or a spell trap that's going to be activated. Last but not least, damage equals reptile. So once per turn, when you take damage from a battle involving a reptile monster, you have to special summon the one reptile monster from your deck with attack equal to or less than the damage that I took. So honestly, if we take enough damage, we could possibly summon Worm King, Worm King and Queen have the same, but you could summon creatures like Worm Prince or Worm Loose, whatever worm creature is best for you at the time. Now for the extra deck, I recommend 2 copies of Worm Zero. For this card requires 2 or more reptile worm creatures. Now, for each fusion monster with a different name that is used for this card, it gains 500 attack and it gains disabilities. So let's say you only use 2 for fusion summoning, right? Now once per turn, you can select 1 reptile monster in your graveyard and special summon and face down the defense position. Now that's only if you use 2, right? And it only gains 1,000 attack for that. Now let's say you use 4. It has 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000. Now it has 2,000 attack, and it gains these abilities. The first ability and the second one, which you can remove from play 1 reptile monster from your graveyard to send 1 monster on the field to the graveyard. So if you banish a reptile monster, you get to send 1 monster on the field to the graveyard. Then, if you use 6, you can use all the past abilities as well as the new one. Once per turn, you get to draw 1 card. Now, the way to summon this would be with Future Fusion, because that's all we have. This will more likely make you use everything that you have and use it as material. 2 copies of Utopia, because when a monster declares an attack, detach 1 Xyz material to negate that attack. And if this card has no materials while it's as an attack, this card is destroyed. As you can see, we have a couple of level 4 creatures here. That's all we pretty much have. So this would be great to Xyz summon or fusion summon. 1 copy of Steel Swarm Roach. Now, during either player's turn, when a level 5 or higher monster would be special summoned, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, negate it, and destroy it. So this is a great card because it'll help so your opponent doesn't special summon anything from like the hand, deck, or graveyard, or banished, because this will negate it. 1 copy of number 106, Giant Hand. When a monster effect is activated on your opponent's field, quick effect, you can detach both materials from this card has. Then target one equipped monster your opponent controls. While this card is face up on the field, that monster's effect is negated and you cannot change the battle position. So pretty much just think of it like, as long as this card's on the field and you detach those Xyz materials, your opponent cannot change battle position of that card from attack to defense or defense to attack or use its abilities, but it can still attack from the looks of it. So this is good enough just so your opponent cannot activate abilities, which is what we're going for. 1 copy of King of the Feral Imps. Now this card is good because once per turn, you get to detach 1 Xyz material, add 1 reptile monster from your deck to your hand. So you could help you search throughout your deck to get what you need, but you have other cards in here that can also do that. Now, 2 copies of number 52, Diamond Crab King. This card is not necessary in any way, shape, or form, but I think it would be good in my opinion because it has 3,000 defense and possibly 3,000 attack. So you're going to be needing 2 level 4 monsters, and once per turn, you can detach 1 Xyz material from this card, change this card from defense mode to attack mode, and attack and defense switch. And so its defense is no longer 3,000, its attack is now 3,000. And the changes last until the end phase of this turn. Now if this card is attack, it goes straight back to defense mode. And if this card is attack, change it to attack mode at the end of the damage step if it has no Xyz materials. So this is good for having attack and defense at the same time, but if you have no Xyz materials, it is forced to go in attack mode at the end of the damage step. So if you're lucky enough, you have it as a great defense. If not, good attack. If not, well, it worked in some way or another. And then 1 copy of number 41, the Terribly Tired Tapir. Where basically all this does is helps you stall a bit. So let's say you don't have a good hand or nothing's good on the field. You summon this card in defense mode. All face-up monsters on the field goes to defense mode, cannot change their defense position, and their abilities are negated as long as this card's on the field. Or you can have it in attack mode, where it cannot be destroyed by card effects, and your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. But everybody goes for the ability that has it in defense mode. So yeah. Other than that, this is my Yugioh deck for January of 2025. In a different video, I'll be going over how to use it, the combos, and playing casually and ranked, so y'all can see if this is going to be good or not. But that's it for today's video when it comes to my Yu-Gi-Oh! Worm deck. I highly appreciate everybody's support. Thank you for watching today's video. Hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully this video helped you out in some way, shape, or form when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh! Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification button for future videos when it comes to comedy, gaming, and much more. Thank you for the support, everybody, and have a good day, everyone.